Vishnupad Paramam Sapradrajikacharya Astatara Sada Sri Sriman His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nityalila Paveswaram Vishnupad Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Brahma Cāho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Sri Mathura Dham Ki Jai Sri Namadweep Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 18, the battle between Lord Boar and Hiraṇyākṣa. And you got, takes, what's it, 2? Okay, so. dadarśa, tatrābhijitaṁ, tatrābhijitaṁ, dharā-dharaṁ, pronnīyamānāvanim, agra-daṁṣṭrayā, muṣṇantam, akṣṇā, sva-ruco, aruṇa-śriyā, jahāsa, cāho, vana-gocaro mṛgaḥ, dadarśa tatrābhijitaṁ dharā-dharaṁ, pronnīyamānāvanim agra-daṁṣṭrayā, muṣṇantam akṣṇā muṣṇantam akṣṇā sva-ruco-śriyā, jahāsa cāho vana-gocaro mṛgaḥ, dadarśa tatrābhijitaṁ dharā-dharaṁ, pronnīyamānāvanim agra-daṁṣṭrayā, muṣṇantam akṣṇā sva-ruco ruṇa-śriyā, jahāsa cāho vana-gocaraḥ mṛgaḥ, dadarśa tatrābhijitaṁ dharā-dharaṁ pronnīyamānāvanim agra-daṁṣṭrayā muṣṇantam akṣṇā jahāsa cāho vana-gocaro mṛgaḥ. Ladies. dadarśa tatrābhijitaṁ dharā-dharaṁ pronnīyamānāvanim agra-daṁṣṭrayā muṣṇantam akṣṇā jahāsa cāho vana-gocaro mṛgaḥ. dadarśa, he saw, tatra, there, abhijitam, victorious, dharā, the earth, dharam, bearing, pronnīyamāna, being raised upward, avanim, the earth, agra-daṁṣṭrayā, by the tip of his tusk, muṣṇantam, who was diminishing, akṣṇā, with his eyes, sva-ruco, sva-rucaḥ, Hiraṇyākṣa's own splendor, aruṇa, reddish, śriyā, radiant, jahāsa, he laughed, cāho, and, cāho, oh, vana-gocaraḥ, amphibious, mṛgaḥ, beast. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. He saw there the all-powerful personality of Godhead in his boar incarnation, bearing the earth upward on the ends of his tusks and robbing him of his splendor with his reddish eyes. The demon laughed, "Oh, an amphibious beast." Purport. In the previous chapter, do we have a book stand? No, I need something a bit steady because I shake a little bit, so makes it a bit difficult to read. In a previous chapter, we have discussed the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Varaha, the boar. While Varaha, with his tusks, engaged in uplifting the submerged earth from the depths of the waters, this great demon Hiraṇyākṣa met him and challenged him, calling him a beast. Demons cannot understand the incarnations of the Lord. They think that his incarnations as a fish or a boar or a tortoise are big beasts only. They misunderstand the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even in his human form, and they deride his descent. In the Chaitanya Sampradaya, there is sometimes a demoniac misconception about the descent of Nityananda Prabhu. Nityananda Prabhu's body is spiritual, but demoniac persons consider the body of the Supreme Lord to be material, just like ours. Avajananti mam mudha. Persons who have no intelligence deride the transcendental form of the Lord as material. Translation. He saw there the all-powerful personality of Godhead in his boar incarnation, bearing the earth upwards on the ends of his tusks and robbing him of his splendor with his reddish eyes. The demon laughed. Oh, an amphibious beast. Okay, so this is a follow-up to, of course, it was Lord Varaha's appearance day the other day. So I'll try and add a few things into the mix here. Just a word on giving a context. We like to measure things in the material world, especially by the passing of time. We like to count. Of course, things in the material world are not countable anyway. Doesn't matter how many estimations you make, you can never understand what this material world is and how it operates and how long it stays and when it disappears. The personality of Godhead is eternal. All of his energies are eternal. Their manifestations are all eternal, and therefore it's not possible to understand very much about them. But what we try to do is to understand their relevance to our situation at this moment in our time. Yeah, we have a short period, up to say 100 years, where we occupy these bodies and then they get blown away like dust in the wind. Yeah, and then you have to take another birth. But in other places, at the same time that we're experiencing the flow of time in our situation, the flow of time in other situations may be quite different. So in the higher planets, they live much, much longer than we do. But it only seems that way. Actually, for them, they're living a normal life, just as we live our normal life. But if we compare our situation to that of an ant or a bug, there's some bugs that only live for less than 1 day by our calculation. But by their day, they're living a full life. So it's very difficult to pin down, if you like, what the situation of the Lord and his avatars are. They're flowing like the waves in the ocean. There's so many of them that they cannot be counted. But some of them are quite relevant to our situation. Lord Varaha is a Leela avatar. According to Rupa Goswami, there are 25, or he lists 25 Leela avatars. There are many other kinds of avatars. So we try to take what we can, or what is relevant to our particular situation. So we can read it. I'll just mention a couple of periods of time that Lord Varaha appears, and don't expect to understand it. It's not possible. We don't have that range of vision. But anyway, in the Veda base, I found a few quotes. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2. O King, I shall in due course explain the measurement of time in its gross and subtle features, with the specific symptoms of each. But for the present, let me explain to you the Padma Kalpa. So a kalpa is what? 1 day of Brahma. Yeah, 1,000 cycles. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, the present duration of a kalpa of Brahma is called the Varaha Kalpa, or the Svetavaraha Kalpa, because the incarnation of the Lord as Varaha took place during the creation of Brahma, who was born on a lotus coming out of the abdomen of Vishnu. Therefore, this Varaha Kalpa is also called Padma Kalpa, and this is testified by acharyas like Jiva Goswami as well as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in pursuance of his first commentator, Swami Sridhar. So there is no contradiction between the Varaha and the Padma Kalpa of Brahma. So if you didn't understand any of that, you can join me. It's very difficult to get any kind of grasp on what this means, the Padma Kalpa and Varaha Kalpa and days of the Lord Brahma that last, kalpas of yugas. But it's there, and it's given by, this information is given by celebrated acharyas like Sridhar Swami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. They give us some picture at least, or some idea, some conception of what these avatars are and what they do. So, another reference in the 3rd canto, in the beginning of the first half of Lord Brahma's life, there was a millennium called Brahma Kalpa, wherein Lord Brahma appeared. The birth of the Vedas was simultaneous with Brahma's birth. And in the purport, Prabhupada says that according to the Padma Kalpa, Prabhaskanda, in 30 days of Brahma, many kalpas take place, such as the Varaha Kalpa and Pitri Kalpa. 30 days make 1 month of Brahma, beginning from the full moon to the disappearance of the moon. 12 such months complete 1 year, 50 years complete 1 prarabdha, or 1/2 of the duration of the life of Brahma. The Swaita-varaha appearance of the Lord is the first birthday of Lord Brahma. The date of Lord Brahma, the birth date of Lord Brahma, is in the month of March, according to Hindu astronomical calculation. This statement is reproduced from the explanation of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So if that means anything, we're talking about trillions of years, but somehow or another they managed to angle that down to the month of March. So here we are. Of course this is February, but it's the birthday. We like to celebrate birthdays. Well, no point in celebrating our birthdays, but celebrating the birthday of Lord Varaha. That means all auspicious, and we can actually, by doing so, recognizing the Lord and His appearance and activities. The point is to purify ourselves so that we can get out of this world of illusion. In the spiritual world, of course, everything is eternal, so whether it's March or February or January or whatever it may be, I don't know whether they have birthdays except Krishna's and Balaram's in the spiritual world. But it's just, again, to give us some kind of focus. It's very, very difficult to grasp, what 1,000 kalpas are. It's impossible. We can't do it. So, again, another reference from the 3rd canto. Lord Boar very easily took the earth on his tusks and took it out and got it out of the water. This is the earth. Thus he appeared very splendid. Then, his anger glowing like the Sudarshan wheel, he immediately killed the demon, Hiraṇyākṣa, although the demon tried to fight with the Lord. So in the purport, Prabhupada says that according to Srila Jiva Goswami, the Vedic literatures describe the incarnation of Lord Varaha, the boar, in 2 different devastations, namely the Chakshusha devastation and the Swayambhuva devastation. This particular appearance of the Lord Boar incarnation actually took place in the Swayambhuva destination, where all planets other than the higher ones, Jana, Maha and Satya, merge into the water of devastation. This particular incarnation of the boar was seen by the inhabitants of the planets mentioned above. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur suggests that the sage Maitreya amalgamated both boar incarnations in different devastations and summarized them in his description to Vidura. So again, not only is it very difficult to understand even one appearance, we've got a mixture of explanations for two of them. So who's going to figure this out? So anyway, at least some explanation is given there. And then a further reference point from the third canto, the description of a city called Bahishmati, which is rich in all kinds of wealth, was so called because Lord Vishnu's hair dropped there from his body when he manifested himself as Lord Boar. As he shook his body, this very hair fell and turned into blades of evergreen kusha grass and kasha, which is another kind of grass which is used for mats, by means of which the sages worshipped the Lord Vishnu after defeating the demons who had interfered with the performance of their sacrifices. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, any place directly connected with the Supreme Lord is called a Pitastana. Barismati, the capital of Swayambhuva Manu, was exalted not because the city was very rich in wealth and opulence, but because the hairs of Lord Viraha fell on this very spot. These hairs of the Lord later grew as green grass, and the sages used to worship the Lord with that grass after the time when the Lord killed the demon Hiraṇyākṣa. Yajna means Vishnu. Yagnata karma means work done only for the satisfaction of Vishnu. If something is done for sense gratification or any other purpose, it will be binding upon the worker. If one wants to be freed from the reaction of his work, he must perform everything for the satisfaction of Vishnu or Yajna. In the capital of Swayambhuva Manu, Bahishmati, these particular functions were being performed by the great sages and saintly persons. So there is a place beyond Brahmaloka. You have Janaloka, Mahaloka, Tapaloka. The sages that live there throughout the entire duration of the universe. Not just even one day of Brahma, but the entire lifetime of Brahma. They're not subject to the laws of ordinary laws of material nature. They're all fully self-realized souls, and their business is to observe what's going on in the universe and to fulfill its purpose. When the Lord comes in his incarnations, like Lord Boar, these sages can see him. They can understand who he is, they can understand his purpose, and they assist in various ways by performance of yajna. Yajna means that you work in such a way that it's exclusively for the benefit of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Our role in yajna is to offer everything that we think that we have and become purified from the illusion of thinking that we are part of this material world and thinking that we are somehow or another the center of the universe. I actually, one time I was on Sankirtan in Adelaide. This was when I was a fairly new devotee. And I was trying to preach to this young man. And I told him, I said, the problem is that you think that you're the center of the universe. He said, yes, of course. So this is the illusion. We think that we're something that we're not. So Lord Viraha, other incarnations, different kinds, different forms. But the purpose is the same. The material world is a place of illusion. It's been constructed for the perverted desires, fulfill the perverted desires of the ordinary living beings, Jiva Tattva. So Vishnu Tattva, that's Lord Boar, they come. Krishna comes in different forms, at different times, just suitable for a particular leela or activity. And if we join in with the yajna, then we get the benefit of becoming freed from illusion. We recognize the Lord as He is, and we are eligible then to go back home, back to Godhead. So not everybody, well, there is passing of time, as we've read there. So as time passes, different conditions arise, and according to the conditions, the Lord comes and He promotes self-realization, or realization of Himself. And in that way, then, when we come to the end of these temporary bodies, then we can go back home, back to Godhead. So this is our general existential position. And it doesn't matter whether it's 1,000,000 years from now, or whether it's, 10 million years in the past, or a kalpa of births, whatever it may be. It doesn't matter, as long as we catch hold of the essence of the activities of the Lord and our relationship with Him. The whole material world is designed to bring us out of, put us in illusion, but also to bring us out of illusion. It's not that we get abandoned. We may have our desires, and the Lord creates situations for us where we can try and fulfill those desires. But at the same time, fulfillment of our illusion is not the real purpose that the Lord appears. He comes because He wants to get us out of that illusion. It's a bit like a prison. When you go to prison, you get punished. But at the same time, prison is meant for reformation, to rectify the faulty mentality. It's to be hoped that by being punished in different ways, we'll wake up and realize this is not a good situation, birth, death, disease and old age. It's unnatural. So we want to get back to the natural state where we live forever with our relationship with the Lord being the entire source of our enjoyment. So in the material world, we think we're enjoying now and again, but it doesn't. Even if you can live as long as Indra, or even if you can live as long as Lord Brahma, Abrahma bhuvana loka punaravatino arjuna. The life of Lord Brahma, that's the beginning to the end of the universe. So with that length of life, still you're not happy. Lord Brahma is in charge of the whole universe. He's got unlimited, inconceivable potencies. But still at the end of the appearance of the Lord, He's not happy. The happiness avoids us. Lord Brahma, even though He's the leader of all the living beings, apart from these few sages up in the highest planetary systems, Lord Brahma is also sometimes filled with anxiety. Why? Because he's going to lose everything that he thinks he has. So the more that we acquire things, the more that we fall in this illusion of thinking that everything is ours, we can do whatever we like, then the more miserable we become. There's just like nowadays, people are thinking because we've got some so-called scientific advancement, we can conquer over the laws of material nature. And they're surprised even sometimes when they realize that they're not in control. That's their illusion. But scientists like us to believe that if they're not in control now, they will be at some time in the future. So they do all their experiments. There's this attempt to split the atom, this large hadron collider. There's different particles that make up atoms. But no matter how intricately we look at material nature, first of all, we look at cells, we look at molecules, we look further, we find atoms. Within the atoms we find neutrons, protons, quarks, whatever names that you want to give. But there's always some particle which is moving. It's moving. Now how is it moving? Why is it moving? That's the attempt by modern scientists that by splitting the atom, by finding out these quarks and these particles they've called bosons, somehow or another, if we can figure out how they're working and we can harness their energy, then we can conquer the universe. There was a few years ago an interview of one of these scientists who works on this Large Hadron Collider, and at one point the interviewer asked the scientist, well, what's the whole point about this anyway? Why is it important to find out or to split the atom? And the scientist immediately replied, control. He got really fired up. He said, control, that's what we want. So they're spending $10 billion, or they can spend trillions of dollars trying to find what the essence of an atom is. Why is it moving? What force is creating or making it move? They can't answer that. They have no idea. It doesn't matter how minutely you look at the workings of material nature. There's some force which is moving everything else. But what that force is, they can't tell. Yeah, they have their colliders, but they're on a collision course, that's a fact. They're all going to get wiped out. None of them will be here for very long. So the point of the Shastra is it gives us this information. I was just reading the other day, actually, a sample. One of our devotees has written about a book about the comparisons of Vedic time, the workings of the cosmos, and comparing that to what modern scientists think they've discovered in their experiments. So they're trying to show that millions of years ago, people knew what the cosmos was, what the planets are, when life came about on one planet or another. They use figures like 4.5 billion years is a standard that if you look at various calendars and calculations of time from different cultures, everybody seems to kind of agree that about 4.5 billion years ago, that was when things appeared on this planet, at least, or started to move. And so the point for us is to tell them, well, that information that you spent so much money and time trying to discover, it's already there in the Vedas. Descriptions of, the appearance of various, floods, the kind of that Noah's Ark story. So they try to prove that their idea is to try to show that the knowledge that they're desperately seeking through modern science is already there in the Vedas. So anyway, the idea is that even if they figure out those kinds of details, how far the sun and moon are, and how the workings of the universe are, it still does not give them the answer to real happiness. I mean, the bottom line of anything that we do is that we want to be happy. So we pursue things, we manipulate things, or try to manipulate things. To what end? Control, happiness. They think that that's where happiness lies. It does, but not in the way that they're thinking. An ordinary person, they cannot get happiness from controlling something which is not theirs. If you have borrowed something from someone, at some point you'll have to give it back. That's the law of nature. So we're borrowing the elements that Krishna has given, and at some point we have to give it back. The Bhaktaram Jagnatapasam Savaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sarvabhutanam Gyatmamam Shantim Rishiti. That shanti, that peacefulness of heart, that can only come when we recognize the nature of the Lord and our own subordinate nature to Him. When we start to accept that the Lord is the actual enjoyer of everything, when we accept that He's the actual controller of everything, then we can actually approach a peaceful situation. Somebody's a thief, they're always disturbed. I told this story before, that Prabhupada said that one time he was speaking with a policeman. I guess he was in his early 20s, but he was speaking with a policeman, and as he was talking with him, some men came around the corner. So as soon as they saw the policeman, they ran. So they weren't doing anything wrong at the time that they were seen. But Prabhupada was surprised. He asked the policeman, why are they running? They're not doing anything. He said, no. He said, because they're thieves. Then any time they see a policeman, they feel guilty, so they run. They're getting an anxiety. So this is the situation. We're all a bunch of thieves, and therefore we're always in anxiety. Doesn't matter where you go, who you are. Nowadays you've got a situation where we have people like Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon. He's worth now estimated about $3.5 trillion. It's very difficult to conceive of what you could do with, $3 trillion. The British royal family, they're said to possess properties worth in excess of $3 trillion. So what will you do with that? And we are tiny living beings. We have to pass stool every day. With your $3.5 trillion, can you stop passing stool? Can you stop eating? You have to, all these things that we have to do is subordinate. You get one little virus, so minuscule you can hardly capture it. But it can wipe out any trillionaire instantly. So our situation is that we're all misbehaved. We're all making false claims about who we are, what we're here for, what we're supposed to be doing. We're all in competition with each other, trying to scramble to the top of the heap, only to be dragged down again by time. Even if Mr. Bezos can stop himself from getting diseased, he can't stop himself from growing old. There's no billionaire or trillionaire or quadrillion, whatever figure that you can come up with, which will stop you from growing old. It's not possible. The material world is designed in such a way that it's a temporary manifestation. So why pursue trying to become happy in a place which is impermanent? It can't be done. If you want to become happy, you have to get to the position of eternality, what we are in eternity. And that nature that we have is as a subordinate. We're not Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. We're not in control of the material world. We're fully being controlled. So the appearance of the Lord as Varaha or any other incarnation, that's to remind us the Lord comes, there's some big demon, so in an appropriate way, according to the conditions and the manifestations of the demonic nature that come about, the Lord accepts different forms, like Varaha, like Nrsimhadev, so many others, and shows us what the real situation is, that He's the master, we're the subjects. So if we recognize the appearance days of such Vishnu Tattvas, or representatives of Vishnu Tattva, then we have a chance to pacify the burning heart our hearts are burning with desire. That's the problem. Always agitated. Doesn't matter how much we think we've got, we always want more. Yeah, everybody's thinking like that. Whatever they have, they want more and more and more. But the more that you get, the more burden it becomes. It becomes very difficult, actually. A person who has no false claims, he can be happy. So this is our attempt. Every now and again, there's a change in conditions. Different millenniums bring along different kind of situations, and the Lord appropriately responds by appearing and removing the false temporary thieves. Here we have Lord Varaha. He's being called the beast. So of course he can be a beast, but that doesn't alter his real nature. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the demons, they can't recognize Krishna. They don't know what he is. And they're always trying to, somehow or another, capture him, kill him, get rid of him, match their own might against that of the Lord. But it's not possible. Our situation is, like Hiraṇyākṣa, we can be killed. If you can be killed, then you're always in anxiety. So anybody who's intelligent, they know at any moment we can leave. Yeah, we can leave these bodies, then we push on, we have no choice. We have to go. So where to go, that's the problem. So the yajna is meant to direct our attention to the real goal in life, to become fearless by overcoming death, old age, disease and death. And that can be done if we situate ourselves under the shelter of the person who is truly deathless. That's Krishna and his incarnations. They're not subject to death. We are. If we take shelter of them, then we get freed from that anxiety of death, impending doom. All right, so we'll finish at this point. It's 10 to 9. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu. Do we have a microphone? Sorry, I'm a bit deaf and...
When thieves see the police, they run away. So when a thief slowly becomes a good person again, or a law-abiding citizen, they're happy to see the police. So how can we also be happy, or when we realize that Krishna is always watching us, he's always with us, he's always hearing our rubbish in our heads, and so on and so forth. Please, can you give some instruction how we can be more happy seeing the police, so to speak? Or
well, it's a question of clearing the heart. The heart is full of desires, illicit desires mainly, lusty desires. I want this, I want that. So we get covered over. The purpose of yajna is to uncover the true, pure self. When you're properly situated, sorry. when we clear our hearts, Chaito Darpanamajanam, that's the very first thing that Lord Chaitanya says is the result of Jagya. Chaito Darpanamajanam, the heart becomes clear. When the heart is freed from illicit desire, illegal desire, then you become happy. It's not possible when you're walking around, we do so many things that we shouldn't be doing. Or, we think so many things that we shouldn't be thinking. So that naturally creates, it's like a cloud. It's like anything that you've ever done wrong. Other people may not know, but it's actually within your own heart, the realization that I've done something wrong, and it follows you like a shadow. And until you can clear that away, you remain in anxiety. A person who's perfectly 100% surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord, that means he's only doing whatever the Lord wants him to do in a loving relationship. His heart is clear. He's not got anything to hide. There's nothing from the past that's going to come up and, cause problems. We have so much burden within our hearts from things that we've done wrong from this life and from previous lives. So what to do? We need a cleansing process. So as we do our devotional service, that cleansing process is taking effect. Chaito Darpanamajanam. And eventually when we get to the point where there's no anatta nivritti, there's no things hidden away in the past, then we become relieved, and then from relief you become happy. So any performance of Jagya, whatever age it may be in, whether it's Kali Yuga, well, the only Jagya that we're fit to do is to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. We're not able to do anything else. In previous millenniums, or previous periods of time, when other incarnations of the Lord appear, then you have to adjust. You do your fire sacrifice, or you do what's the other one?
Meditation.
Meditation, yes. So there's different ways of approaching the Lord, but the effect is the same and the goal is the same. Just because the conditions in this material world are a little different, but the Jagya remains. The effect of the Jagya, the form of the Jagya may be different. Fire sacrifice, meditation, chanting, whatever. But if we do it sincerely, with full surrender, recognizing the supreme position of the Lord, then you get relief. Otherwise, if we continue on, whether it's a big offense or a small offense, but as long as we remain committing offenses to the Lord or the Lord's representative, you can't be happy. Modern civilization, they're trying to become happy without God. It's not possible. The end result is that they're becoming more and more bewildered. They're committing more and more offenses to the earth, to the people on the earth. They're destroying the whole... In their pursuit of becoming more happy, they're destroying whatever hope of happiness that they've got. So we have to follow the directions of those who are actually pure in heart. That's the key thing. Is that all right?
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhu, for today's class. I'm grateful for your presence here with all of us. Thinking of this pastime of Lord Boar saving Mother Earth due to Hiraṇyākṣa's excessive mining and exploiting Mother Nature, some thoughts come to mind about the state of Mother Earth today, with the rampant pollution, exploitation, the ravaging of rainforests, global warming, climate crisis, so many things going on. So as devotees, should we just say, anyway, this place is temporary, let me chant Hare Krishna, go back to Krishna, or should we try to do something to relieve Mother Earth's suffering?
Well, the first thing Lord Chaitanya says was the duty of a Vaishnava. First thing is to purify yourself. If you're not pure, then you can't help anybody else. So before we talk about, saving the world, save yourself. Once we're situated nicely, then we get the potency through Krishna, or from Krishna, so that we can affect the lives of others. That was Srila Prabhupada. Because he purified himself, he was completely surrendered. Therefore he became a suitable vehicle for the purity of the Lord to flow through him and bring others to the same platform. But if you don't have a pure intention, Krishna can't work through you. It's not that we're saving anybody, but we're trying to be vehicles to be used by Krishna to save other people. So if we purify ourselves, then Krishna becomes pleased and he manifests himself. There's one little story I heard the other day. Well, the other day means a few months ago. But there were some 3 disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. They were sent to England to begin the Sankirtan movement in the West. The idea was that if they could establish a bridgehead, then Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur himself intended to go to the West, base himself in London, and from there preach all around the world. So for 3 years, these 3 men that he sent, they were in England, they went to Germany and a couple of other places, but they couldn't make practically a single devotee. 1 or 2 ladies, I think, but they weren't interested in preaching as an intellectual. But they couldn't do anything. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had to call them back. He was spending 700 rupees a month to keep these men in London, which in 1935, that was a huge amount of money. But he was sending it every month to keep them there. And the leader of that group, he was a learned scholar, fluent in English, from a good, family, etc., etc. So he was sent there as the leader of the group. He was called back, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was disgusted with him. And he actually gave orders that if he comes to my Vyasa Puja, don't let him in. So this was one of his chief so-called preachers. But when he came back, made his report, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati wouldn't let him into his Guru Puja, or Vyasa Puja. Why? Because he wrote a booklet, My First Year in England, or My First Year Preaching in England. And then he wrote another one after a year, My Second Year of Preaching in England. So when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati saw that, he said, keep him away from me, don't allow him to come. He committed a big offense. Why? Because he used the platform that he was given for preaching to glorify himself. In those booklets, he didn't mention in any one place Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, only himself. Now when Prabhupada went, all he talked about was his Guru Maharaj, getting the mercy of his Guru Maharaj. He never advertised himself. He never posed himself as being something special. Quite the opposite, he always felt that he was unfit. But he recognized that Krishna was giving, through his Guru Maharaj, he was giving him a chance to do some service. So that's purity. But when there's a sense of doing things for your own glorification, or so that other people will glorify you, it becomes polluted. So we have to be pure at heart. So I, one time, was with Prabhupada in Bombay, and he'd been preaching about, how we should all go out and preach in the Sankirtan Yajna. So at the end of it, I was thinking, well, Prabhupada always said, if you're a third-class person, then you shouldn't preach. Just worship the deity, and gradually you get purified. So I asked Prabhupada, you're telling us to go out and preach, but at the same time you're saying that third-class devotees shouldn't try to preach. I know I'm third class, so it seemed like a conundrum. So Prabhupada looked at me and he said, I'm preaching, you're just helping. So that's our situation. Yeah. If we think I'm preaching, you become puffed up. But if you're humble, then that humility actually will help to cleanse the heart. When you get to a certain point, you'll know. You'll get instructions from your spiritual master. So we all try it. But it's not that we are preaching. We're not. We're just passing on the message that's been given to us by Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. They're actually the preachers. And as long as we stick with their instructions, then we can do something also. And gradually we'll get purified as well. Is that all right?
Yes, thank you very much.
All right. Okay, it's 9 o'clock. Time to finish. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Would you give to somebody?